The last time I spoke to my son, he was packing for college and said, "I'll call you when I get there. Don't be weird about it." He never made it to campus, and his untouched voicemail still plays in my head like a promise I can't let go of. I still remember how quiet the house felt that morning, like it already knew he was leaving. Jacob was in his room, jamming things into that old green duffel bag, the same one he'd had since middle school. I offered to buy him a new one, something bigger, but he said he liked this one. Said it had character. He always talked like that, like a kid who thought he was older than he really was. I hovered in the doorway while he packed. He didn't look up when he said it. "I'll call you when I get there. Don't be weird about it." That was his way of telling me to relax. He knew I'd worry. He always teased me for it, but he never got annoyed. He had a good heart like that. Kind but sarcastic. He was only 18, but he had this calm energy like nothing rattled him. He left around 6 that morning. Said he wanted to beat traffic. Humboldt State was about a 4-hour drive from our house in Vacaville. I made him breakfast, eggs, toast, and one of those bottled root beers he liked. He didn't eat much. Too excited, I think. Or nervous. He gave me a quick hug in the driveway, tossed his bag in the back seat, and drove off. That was it. That was the last time I saw my son. I kept busy that day. Laundry, dishes, cleaning the backyard. Anything to keep my mind from spinning. I thought about calling him just to check in, but I told myself not to. He'd said he'd call. I didn't want to smother him. By nightfall, I still hadn't heard from him. I texted. No reply. I called. It rang until voicemail. I told myself it was nothing. The next morning, still nothing. I tried not to panic. By that evening, I was panicking. I called the school. Admissions said he hadn't checked in. Housing said the same thing. His roommate hadn't seen or heard from him either. I asked the front desk to check the lot for his car. They did. No sign of it. I went to the Vacaville police station. They told me it hadn't been long enough. Said sometimes kids don't check in right away. That he was probably just exploring the area or meeting new people. But I knew Jacob. He wouldn't do that. By Thursday, I'd filed the missing persons report anyway. Didn't care what the rules were. I gave them everything: his license plate, his phone number, his route, a photo from his senior yearbook. Friday morning, I got in my car and drove the route myself. I hit every gas station and roadside diner between here and Arcata. I asked around. Showed people his picture. Nothing. Then, 3 weeks later, the ranger called. They'd found his car. It was off Highway 101, just past Richardson Grove. Parked on a dirt turnout behind a clump of trees. You wouldn't see it from the road unless you were looking for it. It was locked. The duffel bag was still inside. So was his laptop, his wallet, even the root beer bottle. The only thing missing was Jacob. Keys were in the ignition. Battery was dead. No signs of a struggle, they said. The official report said he'd probably walked off on his own. Called it a voluntary disappearance. The detective even suggested maybe Jacob had changed his mind about college. That maybe he didn't want to be found. Bullshit. Jacob didn't just walk away. Something happened to him. I couldn't let it go. I pulled his phone records, dug through his email, found passwords he'd left scribbled in an old notebook in his desk. I didn't care if it was legal. He was my kid. I was going to find out what happened. That's when I found something strange. Something buried in his email. A chain of messages with a woman I'd never heard of. A woman named Kelsey. The emails went back 6 months. Then I checked his text history, same thing. Dozens of messages. Some friendly. Some flirty. Some weird. Then one line in an email dated 2 weeks before he left for college: "If your dad ever finds out what we talked about, I'm done." I'm not kidding. Don't say a word. That's when everything changed. I didn't recognize the name Kelsey. She wasn't a student at his school, and she sure as hell wasn't anyone Jacob had ever mentioned. So I dug deeper. I found her Instagram. Kelsey Barnett, 26. Lived in Eureka, about 30 minutes north of Humboldt State. She worked part-time at a bookstore and posted pictures of sunsets and crystals, like she was trying to be some kind of earthy soul. But her captions didn't match the tone in her emails to Jacob. Not even close. I went back through the emails. I printed every one. She wasn't just some older friend. She was obsessed with him. The way she wrote to him was needy, manipulative. "Don't let anyone come between us. You said you'd protect me. I can't be alone again, Jacob. I won't be. And in one email just 10 days before he left, we can finally be together when you get here. I already have the cabin ready. Cabin. I stared at that word for hours. Where the hell was she planning to take him? I drove to Eureka, parked near the bookstore and waited. She showed up around 3 p.m., carrying a box of old paperbacks and wearing a long cardigan, like she wanted people to think she was harmless. I followed her when her shift ended. She got into a gray Subaru and drove north. 40 minutes later, we were in the thick of the redwoods. Nothing but trees and dirt roads. No signs. No GPS. Just winding gravel paths that looked like they hadn't seen a car in weeks. She pulled off near an old logging trail and drove down a private road. I didn't follow all the way. I didn't want to spook her. But I marked the location and turned back. I brought it to the police. They said it was trespassing. That they had no probable cause. Even when I showed them the emails. Even when I pointed out the line about the cabin. They didn't care. So I went back the next day. Alone. I hiked in from the south side, parked a mile away and walked through brush so thick I had to crawl half the time. My arms were scratched to hell, and my boots were soaked. But I finally found it. The cabin. Old, quiet, tucked between trees like it was hiding. No driveway, just a footpath. Curtains drawn. No car. I waited. I listened. After a while, I crept up to the porch. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I peeked through a crack in the window. Inside was a cot, a desk, some shelves with books, but nothing else. No photos, no clothes, no sign of Jacob. But on the desk was something that stopped my heart. His flannel shirt, the same one he wore the day he left. Folded, neatly, like it was being kept. I took a photo, backed out, and left. I didn't touch a thing. That night, I called the detective again. Told him everything. The emails. The cabin. The shirt. He still didn't care. Said the shirt didn't prove anything. Said people can leave voluntarily all the time. I asked him, so what, he just walked out into the woods and never came back? He said maybe he wanted to disappear. I almost put my fist through the wall. That's when I realized if I was going to find my son, I'd have to go past the law. Because someone was lying. And I was about to find out who. I went back to the cabin the next morning before sunrise. This time, I brought gloves and a flashlight. I wasn't just looking, I was going to search. The place was silent. No movement. No car. Just the wind rattling the tin roof and the creak of old wood. I pushed the door open with my shoulder. It wasn't locked. Inside, it smelled like mildew and dust. The cot was made up like someone had left in a hurry or was planning to come back. The shirt was still there on the desk. Under it was a spiral notebook with a cracked cover. It wasn't Jacob's. I knew his handwriting. This was someone else's. I flipped through the pages. At first, it was just notes, names, grocery lists, weird little poems. Then something that made me stop cold. He thinks I'm just some harmless girl. He doesn't know how deep he's in. He told me about his dad. About the fight. That's why he won't go back. He says he wants to disappear. But I don't think he really means it. The fight. Jacob and I had an argument 2 weeks before he left. I told him I wasn't sure about Humboldt. That maybe he should stay close. He said I was trying to control him. We both said some things we shouldn't have. But he would never run away because of that. Not Jacob. I took the notebook and left everything else. I was halfway back to my car when I saw headlights on the trail up ahead. Someone was coming. I ducked into the trees. Waited. Watched. It was her. Kelsey. Same Subaru. She pulled up to the cabin, got out, and walked in. I stayed low. Waited for a long time. When she came back out, she was carrying a black plastic storage bin. Heavy looking. She struggled with it, dragged it toward the back of the cabin, and disappeared behind it. I moved closer. Quiet. Careful. When I rounded the back of the cabin, I saw a small shed tucked into the trees. She was inside. I couldn't see what she was doing, but I heard her mumbling to herself. That's when my foot snapped a twig. She froze. I ducked, held my breath. Then I heard her whisper, "Jacob!" My stomach dropped. She came out of the shed slowly, looking around. She didn't see me, but her face. She looked different, pale, jittery, like she hadn't slept in days. She turned back, locked the shed with a padlock, and left. I waited another 10 minutes. When it was safe, I crept up to the shed. The padlock was new, too strong to break without tools. I pressed my ear to the wood. I thought I heard something. Not a voice. Not movement. Just a sound. Low. Like breathing. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't call the police either. I'd done that already. Instead, I went to Home Depot. Bought bolt cutters, gloves, a crowbar. If no one else was going to open that shed, I would. Because something was in there. And I had to know what. The next morning, I was back at the cabin before the sun rose. Fog clung to the trees like smoke. It was cold and quiet. I had the bolt cutters in my backpack. My hands were shaking, but not from the cold. I made my way to the shed behind the cabin. The same lock was still there. Same silence. I stood there a long time, listening. Then I took the cutters and snapped the lock. Popped louder than I expected. I opened the door slow. Inside, it was dark. The air smelled like sweat, old wood, and something worse. Like something had gone bad. There was a single mattress on the ground. Stained. A jug of water. A small lamp. Some food wrappers. And in the corner, a phone. Jacob's phone. I recognized the cracked screen. I'd seen him drop it a dozen times. But no Jacob. The mattress looked like someone had slept there. But he wasn't there now. There was something else though, photos. Dozens of printed photos taped to the wall. All of Jacob. At school. At home. Sleeping. And one photo of him and me at the lake 2 summers ago. I hadn't even known anyone was there taking it. There was writing under that photo. Red ink. Sloppy handwriting. He lied. That's when I heard a twig snap behind me. I spun around. It was her. Kelsey stood in the doorway holding a revolver. I told you to stay away, she said, voice flat. I stepped back, hands raised. Where's my son? She stared at me. Eyes glassy, distant. He didn't want to leave. He told me you were the problem. I shook my head. You're lying. She smiled, just barely. He loved me. You ruined that. You pushed him away. I felt like my heart was trying to climb out of my throat. Where's he, Kelsey? She raised the gun higher. Gone. He's gone because of you. I lunged before I could think. We hit the ground hard. The gun went off once, then again. The sound tore through the trees like thunder. I wrestled it from her. My arm was burning. I didn't even realize she'd clipped me until later. I stood over her, the gun in my hands. She was sobbing now, curled up on the dirt floor like a child. He was here, I said. Wasn't he? She didn't answer. I screamed. Wasn't he? She nodded, slow. He left a week ago. Said he couldn't take it anymore. Said he was done with both of us. I stepped back. You're lying. I loved him, she said, almost a whisper. But he wasn't strong enough. He wanted too much. To fix things with you. He said he made a mistake. My knees buckled. I sat down hard on the dirt. Everything blurred. Later, I called the police. They took her in. Charged her with kidnapping and unlawful imprisonment. She kept saying the same thing over and over. He left. He left. He left. They searched the woods for weeks. No body. No trace. Just that notebook, the photos, and his phone. The voicemail on that phone still plays in my head. Hey Dad, I'm about halfway there. Just stopped for gas. Don't worry, I'll call when I get there. He never did. And maybe I did push him too hard. Maybe I should have listened more. Maybe she's not the only one who made mistakes. But I'll never stop looking. Because until I know for sure, until I see him, every noise at night, every unknown call, every knock at the door, it could be him. I replay that voicemail like a prayer. And I wait.